He's playing Ghost Recon.
Yeah, Ghost Recon's not.
I'm not. I was a Ghost Recon fan. I don't know when I stopped playing, but you know, I was a Ghost Recon fan at some point.
Vaguely remember it, but then again, I think I tend to stay away from most first-person shooters.
I think the first game I bought on my 360 was Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter. So that was the first game I got on my 360. But I've always been a Rainbow Six Tom Clancy fan, between Splinter Cell and Rainbow Six, and you know, all this other stuff like The Division, people. Yeah, just like The Division, which you know. We played...
Division is definitely one of my faves.
We played the heck out of that game. Lots and lots of that game. So.
Division is definitely one of my faves when it comes to the Tom Clancy genre.
Oh yeah. I think if it's Tom Clancy, my favorite of the bunch was the Rainbow Six Vegas and Vegas 2. Just
a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I do remember playing a little bit, like maybe like an hour.
Played it, and the only reason I loved it was because the AI was very smart. You had to be tactical moving through those rooms, and they had the best online co-op playing mode. Still to this date, even with my favorites with Halo and stuff, is a terrorist hunt.
Oh, Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Oh, that was one of the newer ones. That's where they had the dude from the Punisher as like your main. John
Bernthal?
Your star power character.
John Bernthal?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That was good. I liked the story for that.
Never played the Breakpoint games, but, you know, maybe one day.
They tried to introduce a lot of RPG elements to it, and it really didn't go over well.
Yeah, I know a lot of hardcore Ghost Recon fans didn't like the changes that they made in the series after Wasteland. So.
Yeah, or Wildlands.
Wildlands? Yeah.
I think it was Wildlands. Wildlands had some interesting elements. Gotta love that Predator crossover, though.
Yeah, Wildlands.
Yeah. Oh, Ghost the Wildlands was cool, and then they added some more. They tried to add some more RPG elements for Breakpoint.
Yeah, it kind of
It really bogged down the mechanics
broke
of
the
game.
series because Ghost Recon, they were trying to make it like a Rainbow Six, which no, Ghost Recon was never Rainbow Six. Not to say that one was better than the other. It just you have
Stay in your lane.
stay in your lane. Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
Yep.
Gotta do that. Oh, good evening, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
It is episode 110 of Scuba and The Ry.
Zero.
Your weekly dose of games, movies, chit chat, and banter, and anything and all kinds of other things that come to our minds. This is, unfortunately, our last show for 2021.
Yes, sir.
We're going to take the next couple of weeks off for the holidays. And then we will be back in 2022 on a new day.
New day.
We will start doing the show on Wednesday nights because Ry has class on Tuesday night.
Yes, so I do.
We're just going to slide down the week just a little bit.
Yep, kind of like moving back to the OG position because we started on Wednesdays.
Right. We did used to start on Wednesdays, and then we shifted to Tuesdays, and then, yeah. You know, but either way, the content is still coming. You're still going to get it if you're enjoying it. And hopefully, if you are, give us a like on this here on YouTube. If you're new, give us a subscribe. Give us the bell notification.
Ding, it's a win.
Up the things, and the things aren't running. Now the things are running.
There you go. Right there, people.
Yeah, so
right above us.
Do those things. And if you're enjoying this, share this out with your friends.
Sharing is caring.
Hopefully going to have the audio stuff caught up by the start of the new year so that once we get done recording live, we can also put out the audio version through your podcast mediums.
Spotify, Apple, Google, every single place. Cool beans.
And right now we're just kind of sitting there talking because our friend Q is playing some Ghost Recon and reminisce about some of those games. But you know what? It's kind of funny because Halo Infinite dropped last week.
Yes.
The campaign for Halo Infinite.
Yeah, multiplayer's already been out a couple weeks. Ish.
Yeah, I'm not
So,
a big fan. I mean, the multiplayer is really cool. It's like OG kind of thing.
Yeah.
A lot of great memories of playing multiplayer Halo. But
I have a lot of memories.
I'm not very good at multiplayer Halo. I'm for the campaign, and we both had a chance to sit down and get through part of the campaign.
I got through a huge chunk of it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I got sick and was really just not in the mood to sit and try to playing the game and feel.
Yep,
sick.
I understand. It's the same thing. If I get sick, I just don't look at a monitor.
Not interested. But yeah, so we got some thoughts on that. Got a couple of movies to review. I meant to watch one of them on Netflix, but I never got to it today.
It'll still be there.
I know. Maybe I'll kick it up for background music as I work on my new Warhammer army. A buddy of mine convinced me to start a new army, and I went Black Templars. So I've got a Black Templar.
Did it take a lot of convincing? Did it take, or is it just like a little nudge and it's like, okay?
Well, I mean, my grandmother gave me some Christmas money when I went to visit her for Thanksgiving. I had it in my pocket. We were there looking at some other stuff, and it was like, oh, fine.
Kind of as bad as me when I walk in Wegmans. I see it. I have money. I'm hungry.
That's the worst thing I did on that particular visit. I mean, I got a couple of books I needed so that I could read up, so I could use the units, because it's by far one of my biggest frustrations when it comes to Warhammer 40k.
Okay.
Especially 9th edition, which stopped. In fact, you need so many books just to do basic gameplay.
How many books?
Roughly. At least 2.
Okay. Are they expensive?
The core rule book, which is about 50. They're both about $50 a piece, so it's on par for most of your RPG games. But
okay.
Here's the thing: you need the core rule book, which tells you the basics on how to play Warhammer.
Okay.
It's the basics on some of the terrain, a little bit of the lore and the world setting, and some of the tactics, because this is a tabletop war game. And then you need your faction book, which goes over the units. Now, if you're one of those really unfortunate souls who likes to play with Space Marines, you need the Space Marine book, which is another $50. Then depending on which chapter of Space Marine, you need an additional book that is specific to that chapter. Like I play Dark Angels, and now I'm playing Black Templar. So there's 2 additional books. So if I'm gonna put if I'm gonna put my either one of those armies on the table, I need the core book, I need the Space Marine book, and then I need the chapter book. So I need 3.
That's a lot of books.
Oh, that's a lot, and you're flipping back and forth, going through each one. Thankfully, though, Warhammer Games Workshop put out a new app that you can get and subscribe, and they did a nice thing is in the back of each of their books, like the core book is free through the app. Like if you want a hard copy, you got to buy it.
Okay.
If you want to look at a PDF version, they have that in the app right at the start.
Okay.
But as you buy each of the additional books, in the back of the book it gives you a code that you can use to redeem the content for that. So now I can just open my app and look through all the data sheets and stuff for my army.
Okay.
So that I can look up and build units, which is really nice. There was another app me and my buddies were using. It was called Battlescribe. And that is kind of a hodgepodge. That is pretty much a go-to app in terms of the fact you can input any game, just about any game, any army stuff, and you can build, and that way you can track. Because
that's
when
good.
You got like 40 some odd miniatures on the table, and you're trying to manage the units. You got to be able to look, and you're looking up like who's got what, who can do what, movement, all that. So it's good. But this is in preparation for our annual New Year's Eve game.
Okay.
So New Year's Eve, my buddies come over and we play a Warhammer game. We have yet to finish one.
But you play it.
We play it. It takes us a while, but we have to finish. Now keep in mind, a game only is five rounds.
Yeah.
And then you're done. But the fact that because we're back and forth and all of that, it can take us a good 30, 40 minutes to do a round. And if we don't start at a good time, we never get to the end of the 5th round to see who actually won. So it's like, all right, we'll just take it at turn 3. One time we got to turn 4. And it was like, all right. But this year we're going to try, and we're hopefully going to start earlier in the day. And if we don't get through it before the ball drops, then we'll just pick it up the next morning. And now here's a nice thing on the 9th edition is they now have they have these new set of rules that are like crusade rules where you can sit there and turn the battles into an RPG, as in you can start leveling up those characters and writing stories for those characters like you would when you play D&D, or if you played the Warhammer tabletop game, which there's a separate tabletop RPG version of Warhammer.
Okay.
Several different flavors. And then there's the tabletop war game. And then, of course, so it's like what we were discussing was maybe because I have 5 armies, each of my buddies have 5 armies each.
Okay.
And we're like, yeah, we'll just put their names in a hat and we'll pull names, and that'll be the matchups or the story elements for this sector of planets.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, my friend is really into that because he likes the story stuff, and he's very passionate on war. But to tell you the thing that I really did that was really kind of goofy, Games Workshop announced these new army sets that you can get. They have for different groups. There's one for the Adeptus Mechanicus, which is like your cybernetics is a thing, but these are the guys that like add appendages of cybernetics to try and do things, and they pray to the machine god because obviously they can't code in BASIC, so they have to pray that these machines are sentient. And anyways, they had these army sets they announced, and at our local game shop, which is Tower Games for me, great place to hang out and get stuff. They were like, yeah, we can pre-order them. Once they're announced on the main site, we can let our ordering guys know what to look for. So I was like, yep, I want to pre-order that one.
Okay.
And a couple days later, my buddy's texting me. He's like, yeah, man, the armies I ordered for my brother just came in. It's like, great. How much were they? $210. All of it? No, that's per box.
Per box.
Oh, it's double. It's like, wait a minute. And then he's like, wait a minute.
Okay.
You pre-ordered it without checking the price? Yes. I blame you.
Like I'm a impulse buyer, but I at least look at the price before I purchase things, even if I will. Even pre-orders if I still do this. Yeah.
I didn't think about that. But thankfully they pushed my box till January, so got a little bit of time.
You got a little bit of time, bring that change up, bring the dollars up.
The weird thing is these miniatures are really expensive because they're shipped from England and whatnot. But the fact that these army sets, like the Start Collecting or the Combat Patrols or whatever they call them, they're actually the best value when it comes to buying the miniatures, because if you buy them individually or individual units, you're going to spend almost twice as much as you would for the box.
Yeah, it sounds like subscriptions, paying for the year or paying for the monthly.
Yeah. I like the annual thing. It's like one and done, and I'm good for 12 months. Come back to it, we're golden.
Yeah, but the pieces look good. I'm just like randomly looking at photos online, so you can see why it costs some money. Yeah. So, but it's still a lot of money. So
I mean, there are a lot of people get into competitions and weird stuff. And hey, when your hobby community has people like Henry Cavill in it, what the hell, man?
It's just one of those things.
There was an interview he did recently where it's like the guy interviewing was like, so it's like you get it. It's like, this is like World of Warcraft stuff. He goes, no, Warhammer. And there's two sides, and he goes into it, and it's just like, dude, I want to be in a room working on miniatures with this guy.
Yeah, I think I saw part of that interview, and he was talking about, all that stuff in the game world and everything. So, yeah, he's definitely a gamer.
Well, I mean, there was a thing, I think IGN just had a blurb that if they do a live-action Warhammer or a live-action Mass Effect, he's like, I volunteer. I'm like, I'm good with this choice. Yeah. I'm good with either option.
Yeah, that'll be grand to see Henry Cavill in more fantastical roles.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Speaking of, hopefully we'll see how it goes with Witcher, because Witcher Season 2 drops on Friday.
Yep, this week, people. So along with Spider-Man, we get The Witcher 2 this weekend.
Spider-Man on Friday. Spider-Man comes out this week.
Yep, I'm going to see it twice already.
Yeah, I got my tickets lined up for Saturday morning.
Opening night and Friday night for me. And yeah, Spidey crashed the web when the tickets went on sale.
Oh, so, we bottled the cider.
You did?
Yes.
Bottled cider. That's good in my book.
It should be ready for consumption on Christmas Eve.
I'll remember that.
Well,
if I'm not doing anything.
And the thing is,
more than likely I am.
I went to the supply shop to get the bottles, and I got these 16-ounce resealable bottles.
Okay.
Because that was what a buddy of mine told me was the best thing to kind of get, because it's resealable. I don't have to do all the effort of capping them with like traditional caps. And I was like, well, how much did you brew? I said 5 gallons. He goes, you'll need about 2.5 cases. So buy 3. I bought 3. Guess what? Wasn't enough.
So you need to get more.
No, it's already bottled.
Oh, okay.
But the 3 cases of 12 excuse me, are all bottled.
Okay.
And everything else. And then we had enough left over. I could fill all 3 of my growlers, which are like 32 or 64 ounce bottles.
Oh yeah, that'll.
And then we still had enough for 3 glasses to sample right out of the bucket. Which, gotta say, it was a little rough, but it wasn't bad. It was like literally drinking a condensed Red Delicious apple.
Well, okay. I can get an idea of what that tastes like in my head.
Yeah, so it'll be all good to go and all that come Christmas Eve. So definitely for New Year's, have some cider to enjoy.
Oh yeah, somebody else in the chat thinks they know where they're going to be when that happens. I think that's what he's referring to.
Oh yeah.
So
totally, Saladin. Totally.
Yeah. But yeah, that's good. Cider it up.
Get some cider, kind of hang out, work on miniatures.
Yep.
I might watch Arcane for the 4th time in 2 weeks.
Yeah, you did mention you watched it 3 times.
I'm working on the 3rd one. I'm on the third of the 3rd viewing, because that show is just wow.
Yeah, Arcane was one that, I don't know much about League of Legends or anything, but I like animated and fantastical worlds. So I was drawn in, and going through it, it's probably one of the best animated shows. Let me rephrase that. One of the best seasons of best season of a TV show, regardless of animated live action, I've seen in quite some time.
Great adaptation.
It's great.
See, I'm with you. I don't know much on the whole League of Legends lore or story. The only thing I know is their community can be rather toxic. So it never got me into into that style of game.
Yeah, I don't like the MOBA gameplay.
But Arcane is the story, the characters, the art style.
Yep.
Amazing. And I was thinking about this as we were talking offline. Netflix released that in 3 2.5 hour blocks.
Yep, 3 episodes each week.
Now, when I first watched it, I just got sucked in and watched the whole thing straight through.
Yeah.
Now, after learning about how they did it, it's like you can see, like, each 2.5 block is its own movie if you watch it all the way through.
It's a 3-act art. It's, you know, the way they split it up.
3 acts, and they're great cliffhangers, they're great stories, and a great evolution of characters.
Yeah. They did it on a twofold approach, not just for the story, but Netflix is trying to move into that weekly release, regardless if it's a per episode or a couple episodes, and it's a good testing of stuff because it can test the people that just love the binge, but streaming services are trying to keep streamers and or bring in people, and that's a good way to keep it.
Because when you talk about that, then you look at what happened with Cowboy Bebop live action, how that. Tanked.
Yep, and Netflix was up in front and honest, on why they canceled it, and it's because as much as I am sad and want to see a season 2, I can understand why. Because first week they had like 74 million viewers, and it dropped like dramatically. 50%. Yeah,
in subsequent weeks, it's like that's pretty telling.
Yep, it's like and they said with the investment into the show, would it be worth it in season 2? But it'd be cool if somebody picks it up for it, because at least to finish it off in a season 2. But I get it. So
yeah, man. Christmas Day, if you're free to come and hang out, we're just gonna do the usual, which is Lord of the Rings extended edition marathon. That's what I do for Christmas Day. Christmas Eve is The Hobbit. I look forward to doing that every year.
I have not done that in a while, so if I could sneak in the time to do it, I might.
I do that. I do the extended editions every year since I got them.
Yep.
That's what I do for Christmas Day was Lord of the Rings, and now that the Hobbit trilogy's out, and they had their extended ones, that's how I spend Christmas Eve. Put it up, I'll let it run, and just kind of get through it, because it's one of those film series. It's like you could be that diehard person who watches it every weekend.
Yeah.
But me, it's an annual thing. I like it as it's an annual way to kind of close out one year and get ready for a new year.
Yeah. It's I used to watch it on the regular, but just because time and a lot of other things.
Oh yeah, I don't. Yeah, you're definitely talking a time commitment if you're gonna sit and watch. But I just put them up for the background, and then I watch them as I'm not doing anything.
Yeah. But yeah, I used to do it in a 3-night block. Sit, watch Fellowship. Watch Two Towers, and sit and watch Return of the King.
Shut up, Mark. Shut up. So over the weekend, I went back to Ballahack.
All right. How was the return to Ballahack?
It was a lot of fun. Really painful, long hours, but you know what? It was worth it. This past weekend they had their Revelations 11 event, which is if you're not unfamiliar, Ballahack is an airsoft field that does things that are a little non-traditional.
Yes, from what they've done in the past. Yes.
This weekend was their Revelations, which is if you've played the Fallout games. This is a live action Fallout game. Everybody goes onto the airsoft field cosplaying as Wastelanders. There's a overarching story that has gone on for years at this point.
Sounds like fun.
You go to complete quests and do things and earn bottle caps. And it is an absolute riot to see some of the characters people have crafted and created and refined over the years.
That's just pretty cool.
So much fun. So many great people out there. Well, I went out to help as volunteer and help work on parking. So for Saturday and Sunday, I was out there at roughly 5:40 in the morning till about 6, 7 something at night.
Okay.
So long hours, walking around, chit-chatting with people. It was a little rough on the body, but it was a good experience overall. Well, I wanted to try and find my radios that I used to use for airsoft, and I was going crazy. I couldn't find them. I ordered a new one off Amazon just so I could use my radio for that, because there's a shortage of radios with the amount of volunteers that were out there.
Yeah.
So, Saladin, being the nice guy he is, he brought over his radios, and we were kind of working on programming my new ones and testing something we had seen.
Yeah.
And as we were talking, he's like, "Yeah, I borrowed them when I went to New York. I brought them back. I put them in a 7-Eleven bag, and I gave them to you." I'm sitting there, I'm looking, and then I look at that little shelf thingy behind you, Ry.
Okay.
And I see on the second shelf there was a 7-Eleven bag. And I picked it up, and I was like, expletive.
That's just funny. Oh, yeah. That's just funny. It works, I guess. You have them. They're here.
I have them. They work. They're charged. I know where they are. I put them back where I expect them to be next time, which is where my problem was initially.
So you'll be ready.
Home, you put it back in its place. You don't put it somewhere else, because then you'll lose it, and then you'll spend a week trying to find something. And yeah,
I've been there before, where something got misplaced, and then after 2 weeks, I eventually found it. So, but yeah.
Well, it was all good there. What about you, Rob? What you been up to?
Well, last couple weekends, trailing back, did go to a comedy show. It was me, my mom, my girlfriend Angelica, and my cousin Laurice. We went and saw Joe Coy. He's a Filipino comedian, very popular Filipino comedian, and he played at the Chartway Arena over by ODU. That was great and grand. It actually was, he had all fresh new material, which you hope when you see a comedian multiple times that they change it up. But, it was great. It was fantastically funny. I had a great time. This past weekend was just finishing up. As the last week was the last week of the semester. This is finals week this week. But for, an English class, you just have to turn in a paper or project, whatever it is. So
yours is already done?
Yeah, I already turned it in, a few days ago. So it was an e-portfolio, put together everything. We had to create our own syllabus for a composition class at the college level, so specifically designed for ODU. So had to create the whole syllabus and the scheduling and all the nitpicks, things that you need to do, and also came up with a statement of teaching philosophy, which I didn't realize is something that when you're applying for teaching jobs is very important to have along with your resume. So that's something new that I learned. So that's all part of the e-portfolio. Turned it in, just waiting for a grade. So another successful semester at grad school. So that's 3 in the books.
3 in the books? How many more to go?
Infinity and beyond. Who knows? Maybe a few more years. Yep. But maybe 3 years, 2 years. Because it's one class at a time. Because I'm only going one class at a time because that's all I can afford. Because grad school is expensive, people. And I'm not taking any financial aid anymore. So it's my pocket, my money.
That works for me.
But other than that, I actually since school's wind down, I can bring some of the other writing stuff that I've been working on, like the story that I've been working on. I put on the back burner, so I brought it back to the front of the grill, and I started working on it again. I'm 2/3 done through it, so a couple more chapters, a couple more thinking through the story. And then I also am participating in this 21-day poetry challenge that my girlfriend found for me. So you write a poem each day, you send it to this group, and you'll get an Emily Dickinson, award. But if they pick, out of the group, they pick 30 that they will publish the work. So hopefully I get one of the 30 slots to get published of those 21 poems. So, yeah. Other than that, movies, TV, started watching a couple new shows on Netflix. A bunch of just anime stuff between Netflix, Crunchyroll, just a bunch of anime stuff, and movies and games. And you know what game I'm playing.
Yeah. Well, I got up to episode 6 of Cowboy Bebop, and I started watching Hawkeye.
Okay.
Both of them kind of bore me.
Okay.
I'm still forcing my way through them so that I can make sure I check them off the list.
Well, at least you know Cowboy Bebop is a one and done, so that'll be done.
It's still getting through those episodes, though. It can be a bit rough.
Yeah, I didn't really have an issue, but I can understand you don't even have to explain why. Just by what you're saying, I know exactly what you're talking about. Hawkeye, I can see why, but I'm enjoying the grounded of it.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's I guess with some of the other things, it's a little too easy for me to get distracted away from it.
It's a much more slow down and more just, compared to some of the other like amazing bombastic stuff like Arcane and some of the it's a complete 180. It's a complete 180.
Let's get on to our reviews.
Review time, people. What is on deck?
On deck we have The Power of the Dog.
Yes, sir.
Now this one's on Netflix, right?
Yep, it's a Netflix original adaptation of the book of the same name.
And it's Benedict Cumberbatch as the lead.
Yes, he's one of the leads. I would say he's like the main focus because of a lot of the really mean things he does in it. But it's more of a focus on 4 certain characters.
Okay, so it's a Western from the looks of it.
It's a Western, straight up and down a Western.
Okay.
So, like you mentioned, it's on Netflix. It's a Western written and directed by director Jane Campion. Jane Campion. I can't say that word, but it is a Western, and it's a Western that takes place in the 1920s in Montana. And like you said, Benedict Cumberbatch plays one of the 2 Burbanks brothers. He plays the role of Phil Burbank, and his brother is played by Jesse Plemons, George Burbank, and they're wealthy Montana ranchers. And the story focuses on them and their ranching. But what happens is that George Burbank starts to get involved with a widow from one of the towns that they travel through, Rose Gordon, played by Kirsten Dunst, who has a son by the name of Peter, played by Cody Smith McPhee. If the name is recognizable, he played Nightcrawler in the Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix movies.
Oh, okay.
So, and what happens is he gets involved, he marries the widow, and he brings the widow and her son onto the ranch.
Okay.
So, like true to any Western, it's a very slow, methodical, pace-driven kind of film. It's focused on character, focused on dialogue, focused on the setting and situation. But what makes this a little bit different than the typical Westerns that you might see with Clint Eastwood or John Wayne or anything from back in the day, even though it takes place in that kind of setting, since it's in the 1920s, what you get is an actual character retrospective of being isolated out in the West. And what I mean by that is that what they do is they draw you in through a slice of life method. You kind of just drop in, watching them live there every day, but you feel like there's something else going on. And
it's kind of modern for a Western. Aren't most Westerns like more the 1800s?
Yeah, it's in the vein of a modern day Western. It's like the Kevin Costner one that came out. What year is it? 2021. Back in last year. Can't remember the name, but it's that modern day, but still closer to the 1800s because it is the 1920s. But what this actually focuses on, it focuses on the 4 characters: Phil, George, Rose, and Peter. And through a very slow narrative dictation, you get to see like the emotional turmoil that these characters have, especially because of Phil with his brother George. Phil is a very hard-nosed rancher. Like, he's just very blunt, he's very honest, but he's just mean. But at the same time, he's very charismatic. And what you find out through the story is that a lot of his angst comes from having relationships and bonds. And you realize that there's a relationship and bond that him and his brother had with someone that taught them how to ranch. and he feels like that Rose being interjected into the family now, that she's going to take away their money. But there's other things, like he feels like she's a disruption to their dynamic. And what you get through this is that Phil tortures her, but through a psychological way. He does it through conversations, through mannerisms, and to watching, and he drives Rose to this like insanity level that creates this like emotional dynamic between the two. You have Phil, who's just this ominous brooding thing over the ranch, but everybody on the ranch like respects him, so whatever he says is the word. And then you have Rose that's conflicted with, that doesn't like him, and then you have George, who's like just kind of settled and sit back. So there's this like character dynamic that goes beyond the tropes of a Western, and it focuses on the psychological of relationships. And what turns the tide of this triangle effect is the son. And the son, Peter, played by Cody Smith McPhee, he interjects a new relationship dynamic when he develops a friendship with Phil. And what you find out is that through the subtlety and through the conversation and conviction, he starts to whittle his way in and starts to realize that all this kind of like pompous attitude is tied to a fragile psyche of his own self in Phil. Like something that is missing, he uses it against Phil to try to bring some kind of like conclusion to that triangle dynamic. And I'm trying to dance around it because
it sounds
saying
like
too much.
See, but see, when you're talking the whole triangle dynamic, part of me's thinking about Legends of the Fall.
Yeah, it has that feel.
That was one of the big conflicts in that, was that whole dynamic between the woman and each of the brothers.
Yeah. So it's like that, but it's a lot better because what you have is a very strong, powerful performance from each of the four characters, and their dynamic of their own individual like human condition is what drives this emotional fervor even further. And the things that the son does, it's very subtle, and it's one of those things where you have to pay attention to each scene, that it comes back around and becomes a consequence to the emotional flaws of all three characters because of what the son realizes.
So what are you going to give it?
This is probably one of the best Westerns I've seen in a long time, but it's not a Western for anybody. It's a very retrospective. It does a character analysis of what it takes to be foolery, be hearty, but at the same time, you know, just strong characters. And Benedict Cumberbatch, I wouldn't be... he's going to get nominated for Best Actor for this, and it's already getting a lot of praise. 4.5 out of 5. It's one of the best Westerns I've seen in a long time. But only, I say that with an asterisk, that you have to like character-driven films, and you have to like films that make you think after. Because when things happen in the third act, you start to be like, how? And then you start realizing what the son did to get to that point.
Oh, so you backtrack to see what led to the third act. Okay.
He turns friendship into revenge. That's all I'm going to say.
Curious.
Yeah.
All right. And next we have West Side Story.
Yes.
Which is the latest from Steven Spielberg on probably one of the most iconic and recognizable musical ever.
Yep. And one of the most award-winning films at the Oscars. It won 10 back in 1961, which was beat by Return of the King, which won 11. But, like you said, it is a very classical musical.
So for those who don't know, the musical is set in the 1950s, and it's about rival gangs in New York or some major city. I think it was New York.
New York, Upper West Side.
So, and a love story and having to do with this. I know a little bit about it, but then again, I've never actually watched West Side Story. I'm familiar with West Side Story. But interesting thing for this one is it didn't do as well in the box office last weekend as people thought, but it is actually a really good film from what the critics are saying.
Yeah, it's a really, like, even, you know, critics and fans like it, but it is the reason it didn't do as much as what would be expected. One, it's a musical, it's a remake of a recognizable classic. But to put an asterisk on that, when The Greatest Showman came out a couple years ago, it opened up to 8 million, but it made over close to 500 million worldwide by the end of its run. So word of mouth is going to keep this
one going.
Yeah.
Plus, it's a Spielberg film.
That's another.
Most of the stuff his name's attached to just prints money.
It prints money, it prints award recognition, and it just makes him noticeable as what people like to call him, the GOAT.
So without hashing into the story, let's go. I mean, what was the Spielberg touch on this that really kind of set it apart from the various renditions on Broadway, the last time it was done as a film, and other interpretations and adaptations?
Not to go deep dive into the story because everybody's recognized what the story is. What Spielberg does is he is a master of his craft, and he is one of the best. He's my favorite director of all time, but one of the best all time. What he does in this movie is he does a twofold approach. In this. Not only does he respect the original, but what he does is move beyond the original to create a unique, direct approach. And what I mean by that is that he plots a journey through methodical direction that blends in the musical scenario. So you have the song and the dance, but what you have is a very much a characterization of life and love through music and dance sequences. So it's a very story-driven, character-driven story placed against the music. So
we're not talking the trope of intense moment arrives and all of a sudden everybody breaks out.
Everything is seamless and everything blends in well, from the camera angles to the recreation of the Upper West Side in 1950s to the tension between the gangs, the Jets and the Sharks, and just the social dynamic of that situation adds layers to the characters' reasoning and backstories and why they are fighting against each other, but at the same time how their fight against each other is a blind to the overall issue that's happening to the neighborhood. And then on top of that, what centralizes everything is that love story between the two characters, the main characters in the movie, Tony and Maria. That relationship is what brings all the social dynamic, all the boiling issues in the neighborhood together, and creates a very human, emotional journey that creates a domino effect through all the dynamics of the relationships. And because of that, and because of that, you are moving along with the characters and you're feeling for them on these multi-layered approach that goes beyond a characterized trope or a musical trope. You see a film that is hanging in the balance because of the human drama of all these characters just wanting to find, a place for themselves in the city at this time. So not only does it highlight the traditions or the original, but it highlights just the uncharted consequence of, human livelihood. So you get to see that irony in the blend, and what makes it so great is that Spielberg, this is his first musical ever, and he does a better job than the original.
Ow.
By putting a spin to it where it is so grounded within the material that it's just enraptures you into the music and the song, because everything is just seamless. Everything is seamless. But going from dramatic conversations to the song and dance from the popular songs that you know and love from this musical, it's just a journey. It's a journey of this heartfelt wholesomeness that is heavy and very endearing, that you just feel for what happens in the climax, and it shows the strength of the human heart in the end. Okay. Like, it's all building toward consequences. There are heavy consequences to action, but there's also blindness to what you are trying to do, even if you want to do the right thing.
What are you calling it?
Overall, this is probably the best film of the year. Front runner for the Oscars and any of the award seasons out there. Highlights why Spielberg is the best at his job as a director. 4.5 out of 5. Award worthy. That this pretty
So
much
you're saying both of the when Oscar season rolls around in early next year, we should expect both of these to be in multiple categories.
They're being multiple categories, and right now they are leading in award wins across the critic associations across the country right now. Both The Power of the Dog and West Side Story are leading the pack. But yep, this movie.
We'll find out when we get to the award season.
Yep, this movie by far puts an exclamation point on why Spielberg is my favorite director of all time. Yep. You can do a musical, your first musical ever, and outshine the original that won 10 Oscars back in its day. It's considered a classic. GOAT. The GOAT. But that's just, my opinion. My humble opinion.
I guess we'll see. We'll see how it goes for longevity. Alrighty. So, yeah. And then we got Spider-Man coming up.
I am looking forward to Spider-Man. I'm excited. 2 nights back to back. And if it is emotional, I will be shedding some tears. And I'll be wearing my Spider-Man hat. Because I have a Spider-Man hat. So.
Okay.
Gotta represent the web slinger.
I mean, this should be pretty interesting to see how this kind of wraps up and sets us up for future stuff.
Oh yeah, and like I've mentioned to Scuba offline, I have disconnected myself from social media as of last night because I am avoiding spoilers, and I'm not the one that will go look for them. I will be accidentally scrolling and see it, just like how The Force Awakens was spoiled for me. I scrolled and just saw something, and yeah. So.
All right. Well, let's see. So let's talk about the Halo Infinite stuff that we've been working on.
Yes.
So Halo Infinite is supposed to be like probably one of the most ambitious stories they've done, and they had a high bar to try and come with because arguably Halo 5's story was a hot mess at the end.
Yes, it was. I'm not as tied into the lore like I know you are, Scuba. You know a lot more than me. But from just playing through Halo 5, from what I can remember, it just seemed kind of a hodgepodge. And just a lot of the choices that happened at the end just kind of felt weird to me. To me.
Yeah, and Infinite takes place sometime a couple of years after that incident.
Yep.
So, and you're on the next ring, you're trying to piece things together, but I think this one is interesting. The thing I'm liking this one is because it doesn't feel like a Halo.
Yes, and it feels like its own thing with the lore. But one thing that I do appreciate, which I mentioned to you off before, is that playing through the campaign, you have to be very strategic when you're fighting the enemies in this game. This is the most strategic I have been in a Halo game since Halo 2. So, there's that.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of feels like a Far Cry game.
Yes, so much like a Far Cry game.
I'm only a couple hours into the campaign. So I'm starting to wander around and, all those random things you can find as you're wandering through the wilderness.
Yep.
I hate driving the mongoose. That sucks every time trying to drive the mongoose.
Yeah, you got to be a pro when you're working that mongoose. But yeah, it's faster to get around when you have a bike or something around there.
Which is interesting because and from what we heard, they had to cut 2/3 of the map out.
Yep. From what was said by the developers, this was supposed to be the size map of Breath of the Wild, but because of what you said, stability issues, that's why it got delayed, because they had to, take out stuff to restabilize the content they already had.
So, I mean, I think that would be a great opportunity for them to add some of that stuff back as DLC content.
It's possible.
But I think it's because they cut out so much, it limits the terrains you're in.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a whole big variety of terrain.
Yep.
Like every fight accomplishes in like 1 or 2 places with a little bit of difference. But it does make you utilize your weapon options a lot more. Yes,
I have not used as many weapons as I have in any previous Halo game like on this game. Most of the time I'm using like 4 certain guns. I've used every single weapon that they offered in this game.
Another vibe, thinking about it, I got off of that game when I first started going through. I got a Borderlands.
There is a sense of a Borderlands, except without the depth of the guns, because Borderlands has a ton of guns.
It's not so much the guns; it's the way that when you come up to the mini bosses, and the way those introductions go, it felt like a Borderlands game.
Yes, it does.
Like when you go up that first one, it's just like he's there, he talks smack to you, and then you get into it.
Yeah.
And it's like without it, the cartoonish elements that make Borderlands so great, it really had a vibe like it was like a Borderlands intro.
Yeah.
And then you just get right to it.
Yeah. And it's just because I've played through a huge chunk of the campaign. The greatness of the campaign is in the strategic balance that you have to use, not between your weapons, but all the gear that you level up. You have to be smart when you're using your gear and swapping between it. Even when you're fighting familiar enemies like the hunters, you have to be very smart when you're fighting against them. And the bosses, I'm telling you, people, you might rage quit on certain bosses in this game, but that's just because they aren't playing around. You have to be smart, you have to be strategic, and you got to be able to use your stuff.
In May.
Yep.
Because right now, if you're getting into the Halo campaign, it is a single player op.
Yep.
The co-op option to go through the campaign will be available in May, roughly.
Yeah, May-ish.
And that is where I will then try to get a crew together to attack it at legendary difficulty.
I'm there. I'm already there. I count me as your number 2.
That works.
But like, I am enjoying playing through it. It's because it's a return. It's a return to the familiar, but also being new. So I just love the fact, like I said, the dynamic. You can't just run and gun. You have to be smart. You have to be tactile, and you have to understand there's limits to the guns. And like you mentioned, I've meleeed so much in this game that
I never meleeed much in a Halo game in the past. This one, I'm really getting up in there and trying to go through the melee, and then because the enemies move so much differently. I mean, you've got brutes that are just hauling it like Olympic sprinters.
Have you come across those brutes that look like they're on like speed drugs? Come and charging you like a rhino?
That first mini boss where you're fighting against the elite who likes to turn himself invisible.
Yes.
Not the one that has the prosthetics.
I know which one you're talking about.
And it was
that wasn't the one I had an issue with.
You just get your signal one where you drop it and it pings out and it'll ping anybody even if they're cloaked.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. And then just before getting up there, it's like the brutes that are like, hopped up on some kind of drug and just plowing through like rhino.
And the crazy thing with the game is that, you might be think you're done with the wave and you're like, here comes some more, and then it's even stronger waves. I was like, oh my goodness. So, but it's not it doesn't like hinder the fun. That challenge actually amps up the fun because you just have to be smart and willing to use your environment, use everything at your disposal to work. Especially that grapple is a godsend. That grapple
is a really nice mechanic to add it to.
I am a pro at grappling and elbowing in the face. I've got that time down to a T. It's almost like a one-hit kill. It's like using the plasma sword. Don't even need a plasma sword. Grapple, elbow.
Yeah, I got that. And I was like, this is cool. Let me switch over to something a little.
Yeah. So, and grapple is great to getting out of situations, too.
So far, first impressions, great game. Definitely going to be looking forward to getting more into it. And then definitely the co-op when it comes out later.
Yep. Once I'm done, I'll jump in the multiplayer, and I'll give my impressions on that.
Speaking of that, we had the Game Awards this past weekend.
Yes, sir.
Which they had some interesting reveals and tidbits, and one of them is we finally got a look at the Halo TV series that we have been waiting on for a decade.
A decade plus one and forever.
And
so
it's actually going to be on Paramount Plus
next year,
and it's looking pretty interesting. I'm really some of the initial opinions I heard, and I'm really kind of hoping this is true. Is we're not retreading the original stories. We're telling a new story in the a new story with familiar characters, kind of like how Arcane is.
Yep.
There's lore that is around all the characters in Arcane, but Arcane is separate from traditional League of Legends lore. It's like it's giving us different stories or different interpretations of character in more of a multiverse.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this Halo series takes a lot of elements from the core canon, and just kind of works it into a story for that medium.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what really makes or breaks a lot of this, is like some things just don't translate mediums. They really don't.
No, they don't. Emphasis, it might hurt my heart a little bit when I say it, but Cowboy Bebop, there's things that succeeded and failed in that live action transition, but like you said, you should focus on story. If you make a good story, regardless of how close it is to the lore, it can transcend, aka Arcane.
Then there was a trailer for Sonic 2.
Yep, they dropped the first trailer for the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie, and it takes place after the first. But what's interesting about this is that not only is it, you're going back to the familiar with Sonic and stuff, but Robotnik is coming back into play, which Jim Carrey, which stole the show in the first one. Jim Carrey
really pulled his career around. Yeah. He was starting to really kind of drop off.
Just a little bit, but he was like, let's tap into that Ace Ventura comedy, and it worked. But the great thing is that not only do you get to see Tails in the trailer, you get to see Knuckles, who is being voiced by Idris Elba, and he sounds menacing.
Nice.
So, yep. It's a good, teaser. Gives you an idea, what the movie is, but it looks like they're sticking to the same kind of flavor, and which made the first one good. So, just keep doing the same. Change it up a little bit.
So they had some new game. They had some game reveals. We had some new stuff for Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and I think they had a gameplay trailer.
Yeah, they actually showed gameplay, and that game looked sick fun. Like, a lot, because the last time all you saw was cinematics. You saw a lot of cinematics at the Gamer Awards, but the ones I'm focusing on are the ones where they actually showed gameplay. So, Kill the Justice League, you actually saw gameplay, and you saw the actions between Boomerang, King Shark, Harley Quinn, and Deadshot. So, you got to see all of them fight and see how they work, the mechanics of the characters. So that looks good. It comes out sometime mid next year.
Alan Wake 2? Did they really make a sequel to Alan Wake finally?
Yep, they finally. It's a true sequel to the first one, and they're going straight horror. So, yep, they showcased it at the Game Awards. So that was another one that stood out for me with all the stuff that they revealed, was that. Like, most of them were cinematics, but the ones that stood out were the ones where they actually showed gameplay.
Yeah, you have Sonic Frontiers. This is like a MMO kind of deal, right?
This is
an RPG style.
It's very RPG, and this is the first open world Sonic game. So
Sonic's not known for open world. Sonic's a platformer.
Yeah, platformer. So they are branching out and doing something new with Sonic. So you're not just like guiding along, side scrolling. You're going to be having a sprawling open world where you can run and gun and do all the things. And they showcase gameplay, so you get to see. So hopefully the Sega team does good this time, because they haven't made very good Sonic games in a while. So hopefully changing the formula up a little bit might work in their favor.
All right. What else you got here? You got a lot of stuff, because this is our like end of year thing.
Yeah, but it's a kind of a somber note. The celebrating the life of a game changer, and by saying that, the guy who was the architect for the NES and Super NES, Masukiya Umura, died at 78. He was the architect for the Famicom, which is known in Japan, and Nintendo, known in America, as well as the...
Revitalized the gaming industry.
So he was a game changer. Yep. He's the one that did it. So, just celebrating his life. So.
On to the next level, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have some foreshadowing for the Oscars, which we talked about. You think that West Side Story and Power of the Dog are both going to be contenders.
Yep.
And you have a couple of sleeper ones. Which you think Dune is a sleeper?
Yep. So
why do you think Dune is a sleeper?
Dune is a sleeper because it's not one that people are like talking about in the forefront, but are talking about it in the back. Like it is like universally like been praised when it was released, and a lot of people love it. And so on the critic circuit, a lot of people are praising and talking about it, and because of the diversity of the films that are being shown at the at all the different film festivals and being nominated or picking up awards, they saying because of the diversity of the choices, Dune might sneak their way up and grab the main award because of just the fallout. Because as much as people talk about the Golden Globes, the Critics' Choice Awards is the nail in the noggin what you will expect to see at the Oscars.
Okay.
So,
and you think Nicolas Cage might be in contention for Best Actor?
yes, that's more of a personal dark horse for me, because when I saw Pig and saw Nick Cage in Pig, it was one of the best performances that Nick Cage has done in years. But I think the front runner is Will Smith.
Will Smith
As Ephraim King Richard, which if you check out the podcast a few nights ago, I mentioned that I think he will be nominated and more likely will win. So you got it on video. It's on a previous podcast. Check it out, people.
Alrighty. And now to kind of sum things up, we got some odds and ends, all Christmas themed. It looks like.
Yeah,
well, except for one.
But most of them are.
All right, so let's cover the science-y one, and that is a recent discovery of a planet larger than Jupiter.
Yes, so scientists have discovered a giant planet that's orbiting a massive pair of extreme hot stars. But what the discovery of the planet, which they named B Centurion ABB, is 10 times larger than Jupiter. And what makes that very significant is that it is the first planet that they have found that is bigger than the star, because it's bigger than the sun. So.
Yeah, because I think there's some stuff talking about how Jupiter just didn't quite have enough mass to become a second sun.
Yeah.
Our particular solar system.
As much as I know about science, but that's what makes this discovery such a significance, because it's the first planet size bigger than a star. Because what they say is that when you get to a certain size, you turn into a mass of, a boiling ball on fire.
You don't think you can have a solid planet that big.
Yep.
That's why they're called the gas giants.
Yep. So this proves that theory wrong. So.
Okay. And now we got some holiday funnies. Let's go with hey, do you want to go take a trip for the holidays?
Yes.
What would you say about going to the original Home Alone house?
I think I would like to go. I'll drive. But hey.
Yeah, apparently Airbnb has where you can rent some time in the original house they filmed the first Home Alone movie in, complete with booby traps. And yes. I think there's a part of this that's going for charity, because I remember hearing about this where it's like the tickets were like $20.
Yeah, $25 to rent the Airbnb, and it's the charity is the La Rabida Children's Hospital in Chicago. So all the money is going towards the Children's Hospital.
That's cool.
So, yep, it's located in Winnetka, Illinois.
Okay.
Illinois. I think it's a suburb of Chicago. I might be wrong, but I think
that would probably make sense.
Yeah, so $25, people. Just need to pay to get there. So.
Alrighty, and then I think we'll skip the syrup one, because that just seems too much. I mean, the strategic reserves of syrup, and they're gonna tap that like we're talking about the strategic oil reserves.
Yep.
I think we can leave to the imagination on that one.
Yep.
And the last one we have is Santa on the Slopes. What is up with Santa? Santa is skiing instead of working in the workshop? I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, well, sometimes you gotta hit up the Winter X Games, and not just
do that in January after he does his job.
Well, they decided to do it this last Sunday, and it was not just one Santa, but 230 Santas skiing and snowboarding in Western Maine at one of their bigger resorts.
That's fun.
Yep. So this was for charity of some kind.
Okay. Well,
I believe so. It was
always worth it.
Yep. So the event took place in the western Maine town of Newry, home of the Sunday River Ski Resort, the state's busiest. And they took the money that they raised, it's $20 minimum, to go and race down the slopes. The event raised several $1,000s for the Sunday River Community Fund, a local charity. So,
nice.
Santa does some good for the kids. So Santa is giving. Whitebeards and all, hitting the slopes, snowboarding. Half pipes, baby. Half pipes in red.
Oh, wow.
Boom.
Well, alrighty. Well, thank you everyone for watching us and hanging out with us today. If you want to support the channel, best thing you can do is hit the like button and share this out with your friends and family. See if they'll partake in enjoying the shenanigans that we get up to. Shout out and a thank you to Sirenscape for the background music and soundboards that we're using when there's the moment of silence during the show. Today's sound set is from the official Dungeons and Dragons Rime of the Frost Maiden, the Cold Open.
Okay.
We've been traveling between the towns on foot, with the occasional panting of sled dogs nearby. It's winter, it's that kind of thing. Why not? So I want to shout out, check them out, Sirenscape.com. Check out their online player, check out their vast library of stuff. And they got a couple of games they're running. There's a couple of Cyberpunk games and some other stuff. Go check out their website, see all the fun things there. You also want to support the studio. Another way you can do that is head on over to patreon.com.
Head over.
Scuba Studio. And consider being a patron. Patrons get some behind-the-scenes access and stuff and conversations. One of those is an after show that we do just for our patrons that live streams after this show ends over there on Patreon. So head on over there, check it out, hang out with us for some continued conversation and discussion. This Saturday, we're supposed to have Feywild Venture. Going to be sitting there seeing what the party is about to go into the Big Top. Halfway through their night in the carnival to try and figure out what kind of shenanigans are going on. They had a really interesting time last session with snail racing and taking a relaxing tour in a boat pulled by a giant swan. Played hide and seek in the Pixie Land. It was good times by all. Now we get into the Big Top and see what's under the Big Top. So check us out Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, here on YouTube. It's going to be live streamed to our Patreon members, with the VOD released after the session is done. So, another benefit if you're a Patreon member. Saying feed me. Man, those husky videos are probably some of the funniest. Because huskies are so vocal. Anyways.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, as said, this is our last show for 2021. We will see you in 2022.
2022 for you.
Be on Wednesday nights. Stay tuned for more info on that. With that, you guys have a safe and productive holiday season. Enjoy all that family time, all those presents, all that eggnog, all those things, and then stay safe for New Year's. Be responsible. Have fun, and we will see you in 2022. Good night, everybody.
Peace.